Close your eyes. Imagine you're in your home. You're with your family. You feel safe and protected because you're with the people that love and care about you the most. And you're constantly reminded of all the beautiful and hard sacrifices your family has made to give you such a loving home. Now imagine your home shrunk to half the size of a tennis court. Your most valuable and personal belongings are gone. Your bedroom, your kitchen, your food, all vanished. And you look around and you notice mold on the walls, ceiling, floor, even cracks. And you can't avoid the strong smell of urine and trash coming from the outside and coming into your home. You turn around and you see your mom. Your mom fakes a smile. You sense that she is upset. But you accept that no matter how hard she tries to give you and your family a better life, this is your reality and you can't change or run away from it. Now open your eyes. This is just a glimpse of what many of the refugees around the world encounter every single day. From Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and even in the United States. I'm here to talk about the refugee crisis, and I personally am disappointed in all of us, including myself. There are over 68.5 million refugees who have been displaced from their homes because of war, crime, violence, and human rights violations. And what have we done? If this number does not resonate with you, think that a quarter of the American population are refugees. We have let countries put them in impoverished conditions, many without jobs or any type of access to education or healthcare. While we here stand complaining about our own materialistic desires, we live in such a privileged and ignorant society that we forget to take care of our fellow human beings. At my university, I personally get upset seeing the accumulation of food in the trash and hearing remarks like, "Oh, it was too cold," or "it wasn't that great today." Then we forget that kilometers away, there are over 400,000 Yemeni children on starvation and are on the verge of death, while their families rely on grass and leaves for nutrition. This refugee crisis is a test to our human character and our morality. And it's revealing some negative and nasty values about what we stand for and who we are. It is time we come together as a community, and it is time we make change. And it is going to take more than empathy to move forward. Now, I'd like to talk about how I became so passionately involved in this topic. Well, my story starts in college. I thought that if I majored in neuroscience, studied for the MCATs, passed the MCATs, and then got into medical school, my life would be just great and fantastic. But life surprisingly brought me closer to people of different cultures, backgrounds, from different countries. And because of these people, I became so intrigued to learn more, to learn something outside of the constraints of the United States. And so my freshman summer, I decided to travel by myself to Ireland, Spain, and Morocco, and continue learning about different heritages. But my sophomore summer, my life changed tremendously. And it was after meeting 3 Palestinians, one from Gaza, second one from the West Bank, and one, a Palestinian who now lives in Jordan. And to this day, they continue to be one of my biggest motivations to fight for peace, because every day I see their determination and their perseverance. When I met them, they shared their stories with me, their families, their upbringings, their culture, even their religious practices. And they also brought up their political conflict, as well as this term, refugee. Now, I had previously learned about this term in high school, but I never got the opportunity to fully research what it really means to be a refugee. So my sophomore summer, I decided to change my mission. I decided that this time I would travel with a purpose. I would travel to give back to the community, to understand the refugee population, and to formulate my own political opinions on what is going on in Palestine at the moment that has continued on for generations. And so, for 3 weeks, I went to Palestine, and I volunteered in 2 camps. Balata camp, that houses over 30,000 refugees, and Askar camp, that houses 19,000 refugees. And here, I designed recreational activities for the children. I taught conversational English. I organized panels for the university to teach mothers about child nutrition. And I also shadowed a volunteer doctor from India, who was working in the camps at the time. But my journey didn't end here. I decided to then travel to Lebanon my winter break. For 3 weeks, I helped out with the food distribution and taught conversational English. I also was asked to teach conversational Arabic, which was kind of a struggle, but I somehow made it work. But going into these experiences, I didn't have any expectations, and I left with a love stronger than one I have ever experienced in my life. These countries touched my heart, and they are in me now. They taught me 2 important qualities. 1, humility, and 2, altruism. Altruism is the act of selflessly helping your neighbor because you believe that they deserve the same opportunity to succeed and be happy. And the irony here is that not only did I learn this from the international volunteers, it was from the Palestinian and the Syrian refugees themselves. The first thing we need to do to fixing this crisis is to understand what it means to be a refugee. Remember, one does not choose to be a refugee. If you live in a country with political and economic turmoil, you only have 3 options. You can remain in this land where you're at risk of your own life and you're putting your family in danger. 2, move to an alternating country where you're treated as a second-class citizen. Or 3, settle in a camp. Now, let's say you choose the second option. Let's say you're a Syrian refugee who has moved to Lebanon. Oh, sorry. These are the conditions that you will live in, where barely a thin layer of wood sustains your house with sheets and tires. And if you walk outside, there's trash everywhere. But you may think, oh, can I just get a better job? Can I just look for an education? Unfortunately, that's not an option. I met a Syrian father who only earns $20 a month to support his 8 family members, including his grandmother, his grandchildren, and his own children. And he has tried really hard to move his family forward. But sometimes he even has to deny his Syrian identity. He has to deny it because he's always in fear of being discriminated and even incarcerated. In Lebanon, I also saw the mistreatment of many children. I talked to children, and they told me they felt neglected, depressed, abandoned by their countries, by their communities, and by the rest of the world. And many of these children, from the ages 10 to 16 years old, turned to cigarettes as a gateway to escape their depression. Is this what we want for our society? No. These are the types of conditions you will also live in. You are more susceptible to contaminated water flooding your home, containing bacteria, disease, hazardous chemicals, because there is no proper sewer system. In Palestine, I saw many families who had to stack their homes on top of others because they are not allowed to get a permit to buy land or home. The second thing we need to do is to consider refugees as human beings. We forgot that. We're constantly bombarded by social media claiming that they are animals or that they're here to take away our jobs. But that is not the case. These people have goals, they have passions, they have dreams, they have ambitions. Even in our own country, we sometimes affiliate Middle Easterns to terrorist groups just because of their different religious practices or the way they speak or the way they look. How have we become this slow? We make such automatic generalizations without getting to know our neighbor. I remember when I came back from Palestine, people kept asking me if I felt safe. On the contrary, I have never felt closer to home in such a beautiful land. I remember constantly being invited over for tea and refugee households serving me dinner. And this touched my heart profoundly. Because even if they were going through an economic and social struggle, they still wanted me to feel loved and cared for. I met a Syrian refugee in Lebanon who constructed an educational program for the children to keep them away from the streets and to help them with education. Because it wasn't until a year ago that Syrians were allowed to go to schools with other Lebanese children. Many of these kids, since the start of 2011, are illiterate. They know nothing of their native language. They don't know how to write or read in it. So the creative part here is that he actually brought the classroom inside a bus. And here, he is able to teach Arabic courses and technology as well. The reason why I care so much about this topic, and I think is why I can connect to them so well, is because of my Mexican background. I was a Mexican immigrant, and in Mexico we have this idea that the American dream brings you automatic opportunity and happiness. But it's just not that simple. I remember being in the United States, constantly facing discrimination, isolation, fear. I had people tell me that I couldn't make it to college, that I should just look elsewhere, or even go back to my own country, because I was different. But I knew I had to fight, I had to persevere for my family. In particular, I had to persevere for my dad. My dad, at the age of 18, he crossed the Sonora Desert and came to the United States to fight for a better life for his family and to save money to get an education. And he taught me an important lesson. And the lesson is, la familia que cruzas por tu familia. La montaña que cruzas por tu familia no tiene fin. Which means, the mountain you cross for your family has no end. And he's right. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my family to make them feel safe and protected. So the last thing we need to do is to take action. We cannot just simply cross our fingers and hope that political powers are going to make change. It is time we work from the bottom up. It is time we accept our mistakes and accept our ignorance. What are we trying to teach our future generations? We give them lessons on empathy, on kindness, but then we look around the world and we can't even help our neighbor. Now, I'm not asking you to go and travel to Palestine, Jordan, or Lebanon and volunteer. It could be any deed, small or big. But do it with your heart. If you have the ability to vote, vote for politicians that are going to make change. Donate, start a protest, or even an NGO. If you're an engineer, design a product that's going to improve their quality of life. If you're a doctor, serve a month in a refugee camp. Or if you're a teacher, collaborate with international NGOs to design a quality education program for these kids. My personal goal is to raise money to purchase educational supplies and donate them to the schools that I worked in and the camps I worked in Palestine and in Lebanon. Because education is a right, not a privilege. My overall goal is to become a traveling physician in one of these camps. And I will continue to advocate for people who have gone through struggles and tragedies and think that the rest of the world has turned their backs on them. Because who am I to say that I believe in peace when I don't do anything to fight for it? Now, in honor of my dad's words, I would like to climb the mountain. For those who are blood related and for those who are not. Through this experience, my family tree has expanded tremendously, containing people of all over the world. And the only thing I hope for is to create a world, a community of acceptance, peace, diversity, where all races and all human lives are equally appreciated and well respected. But I can't do it alone. I need you. I hope you can join me too. Thank you.